Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. Katie Roach, thank you for joining us. John Riosti out of Virginia, thank you so much. Reporter for Community Banker. John, you're busy these days.
Yes. Always.
This is not a end of the year lame duck session. Nothing going on, huh?
No, there's potentially PPP stuff going on. There's stuff involving NCUA, so credit unions and banker response to that. So still a lot of news.
Well, John, I appreciate it. And John just confirmed for everyone, we will be live on the next two Thursdays, the 24th and the 31st. Obviously, we will not be here on the Friday. So, John, thank you for volunteering your time, and thank you for imparting your wisdom to us. There's a certificate. Let's go to the poll questions. Have you had a loan screened out for requiring more COVID analysis on the borrower? And I hear this could either be a 7A or a 504. Yes, 20%, no, 67%, 14%, I don't know. Katie, why am I asking this?
Well, we just got an extension to the notice that came out a little while ago about underwriting loans during the COVID emergency. And this notice kind of goes with the previous notice that we talked about a few days ago. There's one now for 504 and for 7A. The 7A one does have a few changes to it. It's mostly the way they're wording things. They wrote out a lot more words. Instead of writing SBA, they said Small Business Administration. But there's some other things too, mostly just clarifying really what they're expecting.
We're going to put together a template, but I would urge all of you to take the notice. The reason why we're spending a little bit of time on it, we know this is for sure. We're going to speculate a little bit later on, but we know this is for sure. It is attached in your GoToWebinar dashboard, and all your underwriters should be addressing these issues. Again, this is what SBA is mandating. This isn't a suggestion. This is what they want. And I'm surprised that only 20% have been screened out at the centers. I would expect that to have been a little bit more. Number two, next year we plan for a 7A budget to remain the same, increase a little bit, increase a lot, decrease a little bit, decrease a lot. John, yesterday we covered a story, 7A lending was down 27%.
Well, I mean, it's been, I assume you're talking about compared against previous fiscal years.
Correct. Yeah.
So, I mean, it is a down economy, but I imagine there's not a lot of demand, but there could be based on adjustments that they could make to the program to make it more attractive to bankers. I kind of see that as a temporary thing. I mean, I just expect the economy to pick up, to sort of rebound in the second half.
We all hope so. Let me read the answers. Remain the same as 38%. 54% say they're going to have an increase. 30% say over 10%, which is great. And only 8% are projecting a decrease. So that's positive. Yes. Those are peer benchmarks. So, I mean, that's give you an idea what other people are thinking. So that's thank you for that. We're going to ask the same question on 504. And remaining the same is 50%, increasing is 46%, and decreasing only 4%. John, our audience is very optimistic of what they can do in 2021.
I concur with them. I mean, it's a tough sort of situation now, but I just see it, hopefully changing very quickly as the restrictions go off. I mean, more of the country is going into tighter restrictions now. So this isn't, I don't think it's going to be indicative of what can happen next year. I mean, the vaccines are rolling out, and hopefully, within a few
I can
months.
stand by my in late December. I can still say the world has gone mad and it remains mad. Hopefully I could stop saying that soon. Finally, we want to know the fees for a PPP. I don't know what to call it. 2.0, 3.0, future. In what I'm interested in is when you've done your budget, are you looking for that to be significant? And when I say significant source of revenues, I talked to one banker who said, hey, one of the things we got out of this, John, and you may find this interesting, is that we got a huge amount of core deposits that we weren't penciling in.
They did, virtually every bank, and that came with a lot of positives, future positives, but some issues as well. A lot of liquidity. So I guess ultimately that's a good thing, but a lot of their what to do with that and the cost of that is sort of weighing perhaps on some institutions right now.
Answer is 5% say, hey, it's going to be significant, 46%. So half say it's going to be a positive impact, 30% no impact, and 20% says we'll lose money in the transactions, which tells me maybe that they're not too interested in following up in providing that service. John, what's going on in Congress? You only have 3 hours, John. Go ahead.
No, they're if you do a football analogy, it seems like they're on the 1 yard line and they're just.
Well, they've been there forever. They got a couple sacks, though. Go ahead.
Right. Well, they got a couple sacks, but now they're back right at the goal line and just waiting to push it across. And I guess you could take heart in what Senator McConnell said, that the Senate isn't going anywhere, at least until there is a deal here. It just seems like, once again, that PPP, there's a lot of dissent and debate there. It's about the other parts of this,
which is good for us. I mean, our little niche of the world. I'm not talking big economic impact. I'm talking about our niche.
Well, it's good if, unless of course it's held hostage by those the debates that there are. There's been language of some bills circulating as it results to PPP. I know at one point there was talk that PPP had been separated out and that was going to be a separate bill. I wonder though, when it finally happens, how much of that will change. As of the last, what I heard, broader forgiveness was a part of that. And
let's go through the talking points. We reported this on Tuesday.
Right.
So what we reported was broader forgiveness up to 150.
Yes.
Or 150 and less.
Right.
And the definition is the borrower simply signs on the dotted line, i.e. a tax return analogy where you're signing that I have the documentation, but the bank doesn't need to review it. Interesting for 7A lenders is 90% guarantee, no fees. Do you still hear that?
Yes.
Tax implications are going bye-bye. Congress has made it clear.
Implications are going, bye-bye. And wonder if you reported, it seemed like also there's a bit of streamlining in terms of the forgiveness requirements on larger loans up to $2 million. They still have to submit the application, but not necessarily all of the documentation. They have to have it on file for, I think it was 4 years, but they don't have to upload it. So they still have to turn in the application, but the process and the work involved, that might, reduce the workload a little bit.
So what do you think? Let's talk about this from a lender's perspective. What do you think a lender will be required to do? I know over 2 million is a different animal, but say between 150 and 2 million, what do you think the lender workload will look like?
I think it'll be much the same. I mean, for the lender, the workload has always been sort of reduced by the fact that they have the safeguard that they can rely on the borrower's certification of need. So, the lender, they don't have to worry too much about that. If this gets passed and, in a expeditious way, I can't imagine, at least for PPP 1 and 2, that there will be much left at the end of the first quarter. It would be, it would sort of, move all the forgiveness and the accounting realizations forward quite a bit.
How much money are we talking about?
It's billions of dollars.
Yeah.
I saw that the last estimate I saw was that there's only been 11% forgiveness so far. So 11, 12%, and if you get, and all of that is concentrated in the $50,000 and below. So so if this goes forward, you could see, just a huge spike, at least in forgiveness.
Katie, what else do we have on that list? There was a sales reduction component to that. What is that about?
So the bill that we're talking about, it's basically been split, or at least last we heard, it's been split into two. So there's that portion that's got primarily PPP, at least for SBA. It's got some other things as well. That portion of the bill includes simplified Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness, which is what we were already talking about. It also included a repeal of the EIDL advanced deduction from forgiveness. That's been a big issue that's been talked about a lot. It had provided a hold harmless protection for PPP lenders and a set aside for $10 billion in new PPP funding for institutions with less than $10 billion in assets. There was, of course, the tax issue that we just discussed about as well. And extended debt relief. That was the other big thing that a lot of people have been pushing. So,
John, walk me through this. So there's two issues in my mind. Number one is we have additional money that we can get out to Main Street. Number one is who's eligible for that money? Can we give them a second loan, or is
Yes, there is a second loan, a second draw provision in there. So, the industries, that are continuing to be hard hit can come back and get another PPP loan.
Do we know the parameters of that? Is that where my 25% of sales reductions coming in, or do we know dollar amounts?
Yes. Yeah, that's where they're going to, it's based on economic need. So they won't, high fly, I hate to use that term, but the companies that are doing well, won't be eligible for the second PPP loan.
Very good. And what are the lender responsibilities in approving this? And number two, the sidebar on that, are the fees the same, or are they bumping up the fees a little bit for the lenders, anticipating them doing a little bit more analysis?
I hadn't seen anything on increased fees, and I don't think there will be. I don't think it's going to be.
I haven't either. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. So.
And that is, I think, the number that's $300 billion. And now, what about someone who has not done a first draw? Are they under these new guidelines where they need to have a sales reduction, or are we under the old guidelines?
That's a good question. I hadn't thought about that. I just hadn't thought that there would be a lot of people who did, who are in that position who didn't get the money. So it just seems that everybody applied for that. But I think there's going to be a need to show economic impact, though.
Okay, very good. Let's go back and tell you a report. We glossed over that. National Credit, NCU. Now, what are you working on with that?
Well, it's separate and aside from PPP. Although the new member of NCOA this is his first meeting. He was just recently sworn in. His name is Kyle Hoffman. Did make a point to ask agency officials today about a new round of PPP, and he talked about a potential $300 billion figure, and just to make sure that everything was set from a regulatory standpoint, that they were prepared, and that hopefully institutions are prepared to go forward and make PPP loans once that's passed. But what they did today that I think was of interest and what we're covering quite closely is they have allowed for the first time non-low-income credit unions, large non-low-income credit unions, to access the investor markets for capital. And it's a little bit different in the credit union world. The capital cannot count as tier one capital. In other words, it won't affect their net worth ratios. But obviously, any capital helps. Money is fungible, and it will certainly help them going forward, make more loans, and obviously, pursue their business objectives.
Great. Well, very comprehensive reporting. Katie, what else have you got on this? Have we pretty well covered it? Just do a recap, Katie. We haven't introduced it, and we're, as we say, we're sitting on the 1 yard line. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, so basically we're expecting that bill really any day now. I think we've been hearing stories from Congress right and left saying that they're about ready to pass it. We kept hearing that they were going to introduce it Tuesday and then Wednesday, and here we are Thursday, and supposedly they traded bills yesterday so that they could look at what they had written both in the House and the Senate, and supposedly they're continuing discussions this morning. So hopefully we'll actually see a bill later today. But remember, we do also still have that spending bill that they have to work on as well. So that's
well, Katie, I noticed I am being silent on my prognostication because I went down in flames. I'm still sticking to my July 3rd date. So I'm only 6 months off.
Wait long enough and it'll be next year and you're fine.
That's true.
Oh, hey, nice. Well, very good. Let's see. We have our webinar coming up in a half an hour, virtual summit. Send an email to Joseph. We'll be happy to take care of you that. And we're going to talk about the secondary market for next year. Hey, John, I really appreciate your time. Hopefully next week we will be able to talk about something more definitive, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yes, hopefully next week we can talk about a law instead of a bill. So.
There you go. I love it. I love it. And implementation and guidance and all that fun things. And yes. Katie, I know you're starting your vacation, but we have you tomorrow?
Yep, you'll have me tomorrow morning, and I don't believe I'm scheduled for the secondary market webinar, but I will be watching that.
Well, you're scheduled today. Today you're talking.
Yeah, I'm scheduled today. But I'm excited to hear that. I went to the actual secondary market summit last year when we were in DC, and it's a lot of information. I had just started in the industry, so a lot of it went over my head. So now I'm excited to actually understand all this stuff.
I mentioned one thing, Bob. You talked about implementation and rollout. One thing that the trade groups and a lot of lending groups are hoping to get from this, whatever happens, whatever bill is passed, is that SBA will put the rules out up front, and that we will not have a sort of a slow motion rollout in terms of compliance and rules and guidelines.
Yeah. I think that would get 100% by both those lenders as well as SBA. SBA doesn't want to be in this position.
Yes, so.
Well, we're all on the same page on that. So
yeah.
It's not a pleasant, to be working the weekend before Christmas, but you know what? You have to do what you have to. Hey, this is all obviously all good news. This needs to be done, and we're getting there slowly but surely. John, thank you so much for your time. Katie, thank you as well. We'll see you in a little bit, and thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great day.